Oh, this is not the first time that we've seen the USMNT struggle to get their attack going. It seems to be a common theme that has happened through different tournaments and for probably a few years now. But my question to you is, and you could say this on a more broad scale, or if you want to just focus on this game in particular, but who's more to blame for the lack of the attack? Is it Gregg and his tactics, or is it the players?
I've got a couple of things here. So um I think it's a mix of both, right? So
Cop out answer. I knew I
uh,
should have said who's more to blame.
and it depends on the day, by the way. Um when you're a coach, you game plan for everything that can possibly happen, right? You're watching film, you know that they're going to sit in a low block. How are we going to break them apart, right? If you've got a game plan that says, okay, we're going to play the ball into wide areas, create 1v1s, 2v1 overloads, exploit maybe one of their weaker center backs, anything like that. And your team just tries to force it up the middle every time, going against the way that you've trained them because you realize that is the best area for success and your team doesn't do that. It's on the players, right? You can't blame a coach for players not listening to what they want to do. That being said, if the coach comes out and is encouraging their players to be patient and methodical and not try new things and just be very, very structured and rigid, that's a coaching thing, right? And that is why I don't like that question as much, because it's very difficult to quantify when you're watching that. However, and I'll give you your answer that you're looking for. I do think it's more on Gregg than on the players, right? Gregg has had a history from all the way back in his time in Norway,
One of the Scandinavian
some
countries.
Scandinavian country, where he was released because of his inability to create attacking football. Then he goes into MLS. He comes back to MLS, and he is once again failing to create a bunch of attacking options. He didn't win a lot when he was here. Now he goes to the men's national team and he creates a really good environment of, we're going to be tough to beat. We're going to be defensively strong. We're going to be, we're going to be on the ball if we can. We are going to exploit these, whatever it may be, right? Whatever, you can tell that the team has this camaraderie about them, that they enjoy being together, enjoy playing together. They hold each other accountable, which is all great. But at the end of the day, when your tactics come in, and it's now been, as you mentioned, years that Gregg has failed to create exciting attacking football against opponents that he should, right? Like, yeah, we scored 6 goals against uh Belarus, maybe. We scored 4 against Oman, 4 against Uzbekistan. Like, great. You should be. Now we're going up against Jamaica's side that is, first of all, we shouldn't have given up that goal at the beginning, right? But once that happens, now you're asking Jamaica just to sit in and say, break us down, right? I dare you. And that's not going to happen, right? And that is then setting yourself up, right? Because you could have done something where your game plan was, we are going to possess the ball, we're going to draw players out, we're going to utilize the half spaces, and then we're going to play 1v1 wide to Pulisic and Weah and let them go at them all day long, because that's what they're best at, right? The second that goal goes in the 45th second, or whatever it went in, your entire game plan goes out the window. And now it's, how do you react to that? And that's where Gregg, I think, has a problem. When Gregg's game plan is A1 perfect and everything goes according to plan, which is very rare in this sport, everything looks great, right? The second he needs to adapt and be a tactical coach in the moment, coaching in the moment is such a underutilized skill in our coaching toolkit. That is where I believe he struggles, where he just kind of believes in, it's going to happen eventually, not trying to make these tactical changes. And then the and I'm sure we'll talk about this too. The player selection was understandable but questionable. So that's where I'm at. I just went down my little coaching my coaching tree. So
No, I think that was a really good explanation of it, at least from a coach's perspective. Like that's a perspective that I just can't bring out
Go
And
get your C license, everybody. That's what it gets you.
it's a good perspective to think on that situational managing, like thinking of that as like a trait to like learn and grow at, as opposed to just like something that people just have or don't have.
And
So
I'll tell you the most difficult part of it is he's a defender trying to coach attacking, which is extremely difficult, right? I'm a
Mhm.
goalkeeper. I can coach goalkeepers all day long, twice on Sunday, and get make very good goalkeepers. I can coach a team to be tactically sound. I can coach an individual to be like technically sound. Like I can teach a player how to dribble and turn and pass. I can teach a team how to be in shape. Like if I have one mindset and say I am going to make my players play in a 4-4-2, and we are going to have one of my strikers drop into a false nine when we're defending. We're going to be narrow. I can do all of that. Where my struggle is okay, we've just given up a goal and we haven't scored in 4 games. How am I going to fix this? Right. So and now you take that back to a defender whose entire job has been to prevent goals. It is a different mindset. So that is, I think, one of the other things. And I don't know quite who's on. I don't remember who's on his staff, but I think he'd do really well if he just had an assistant coach who is just an attacking master. Like, I'll while we talk about the next section, that'll be what I look up here, the assistant coach here. But like, yeah, Greg, you're the head coach, but even in the NFL, right? NFL has attacking and or offense and defensive coordinator, right? People who know that specialty up, down, sideways. That's not a problem to have.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there needs to be much more emphasis on the attack because that's where our best players are, quite frankly. And you can have some debate about who the best players are, but I think the reality is that the guys like Gio, the guys like Pooley, those are our top players. Like I think we have good talent throughout the entirety of the team, but those are the guys that I think you got to focus on and get the most out of, because if you are getting the most out of this attack, I mean, it would be far and away the best attack in CONCACAF. I think it would be one of the better attacks even in UEFA. It would be one of the better attacks in the world if you got like if you were able to get the best out of these guys. And I think that would do this team like a it would help the team a ton because like clearly we can be as strong as we could try to be as strong defensively as we want to be, but as soon as we come up against the stronger teams, we just don't have. I just don't think we have the talent to compete with them on the defensive end, and that's why you see the games like the Germany game where they just can't get it done there to limit the goals and let the attack get their one or two that we need to get the win. So that's why I feel like if we focus more on the attack, now you're giving yourself more of an opportunity in an area where you're stronger. Um, Long-winded way. I'll go with the cop out answer too. So I'm sure there's moments where there's a little bit of both to blame, but I think the larger problem is Greg. And I know we've talked about it in the past. You covered it a bit more as well, but I just don't think he's the right man for this team. And I want to caveat that by saying I think it's harder than it looks to get the team to all click and kind of get on a tactical, like on the tactical same page. But I still think that Greg's not the right guy to get it done. I just think that he has proven time and time again that he's just not the guy to get the most out of this team because there's still, I think we all know, whether we're MLS supporters or anti MLS supporters, that there's just more that we can get out of this team than we've seen so far.
You might be the only person who watches soccer who can actively put his hand up and say, "Yeah, I don't know all the answers, but it looks hard. Like it looks hard, and I don't know how to do it." Right? For the most part, you've got people, especially our friends on USMNT Twitter, who can look at it and say, "It's not hard. This is how you do it," and that's not how you do it. Right? It's tough to have a viewpoint that is very understanding of a difficult topic and knowing that there is somebody who can make it better. Sure.
Yeah, it's super easy to just be like, yeah, just throw all of the best players on the field and it'll work. Like, yeah, sure, it's gonna work when you play Trinidad, it's gonna work when you play Honduras, but the minute that you try to take that step further, the minute you go to Copa America with no game plan and just throwing your best players out there, You're going to get destroyed by Argentina. You're going to get destroyed by Brazil. You take that to the World Cup stage, you're getting destroyed by many European teams. You got to have the good players on the field plus a tactic that's going to work with all of them together. So I think people just assume you could throw your best players out there and just make it work. Like, oh, I put a formation together. That's a typical formation that has all our best players on there, but
Yeah,
what are we going to do with that
I
formation? I
ran
don't know.
with a 2-2-5, 2-2-6, and it looked great. Like,
Even if they put it like even if they just say like, oh, we'll put together a 4-2-3-1. It's like, okay, you put the players that you want out there. Now what are you going to do with it? You can't just be like, okay, 4-2-3-1, have fun. Like, go ahead, go try and beat Messi in Argentina now. Good luck.
and you have now just recognized as a non-coach what we call roles and responsibilities, right? So
Which
the
is what I think USMNT Twitter forgets about sometimes.
Yep, and that's why it's like, oh, it's so easy. When Tyler Adams comes back, we're gonna sit Yunus Musa. It's like, okay, well, where does Gio Reyna go? He's gonna go out wide. Okay, well, where does Haji Wright go? He's gonna go up top. Okay, well, where does right? So when you're preparing against a team, whether it be Trinidad and Tobago, whether it be St. Kitts and Nevis, whether it be San Marino, whether it be Argentina, everybody is going to have to. You are going to have to find what the other team does. And again, it'll be different if you are the expected favorite, right? If we're playing San Marino, there's a lot less prep that goes into it versus Argentina, right? But if you're playing Argentina and you need to say, okay, there's this little 5'7" left-footed guy, and every time he's on the ball, good things usually happen. How do we prevent that from happening? Well, playing somebody like Weston McKennie next to Yunus Musa as a double pivot six might not be the best option there because they both tend to like to go forward. Where Tyler Adams can go forward, but he likes to sit in and defend, right? For example, right? There are tons of other examples we can pick out of there and what have you, but it's not easy just to wake up and be like, this guy is higher rated on FIFA. He needs to be playing. Like it's there's so much more that goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, even to the point of like, okay, we've decided we're gonna put Balogun up top. Jamaica scores their goal, they're going to sit in for the rest of the game. How do we want to utilize Balogun up top? Like if they're going to sit in, okay, maybe it doesn't make sense to try to play on the back of the line and try to get it behind. Maybe he has to play more like a deep line playmaker, get involved in the game more. How far, like how deep do we want him to drop? If he drops too deep, like who's going to be able to fill the striker hole? Like I think there's just so many more questions to it than people actually give it credit for.
And welcome to the fun world of coaching. You get your grassroots license for that. Well done.
So my last question for you, if Gregg